Hello, and welcome to another episode of Third Chances. My today guest is Susan Carr. She's a founder of Java and Inc. She left her corporate career to care for her mom with dementia, and she has turned her love for writing, editing, and coffee into fulfilling small business. What a dream come true. Susan is passionate about helping others connect with their message, connect their message with their audience through clear, meaningful content. And funny, I just said to her, I just had somebody who is a book coach last week, and now we are talking about a different type of writing. It's more copywriting, and it's funny how it all connects together in the universe, because suddenly I'm getting these kind of people to connect with, and I'm really excited. So Susan, welcome to my podcast. Where are you calling from?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Vera. I'm actually in Central Florida in Orlando.
Very nice, close by. So let's hope we don't have some tropical thunderstorm that will disconnect us.
Right. It is currently raining here, so we're used to it.
It was raining previously here. I'm a little down more south. We met together on LinkedIn, and sometimes you have different assumptions about people. And I think it took us a little while to kind of get finally in touch and learn about each other. And I'm really curious about people's lives and stories, and what happened in their life that formed their into who they are today. So if you don't mind asking me, I would like to start at the beginning. What were you like a child? What did you dream of becoming when you were little? And people ask you, what do you want to do when you grow up?
So, remembering back as far as I can, I was definitely a very curious, very inquisitive child. I always wanted to know why. I always wanted to know the reason behind things. And I have always had an inner sense of justice. So growing up, Abraham Lincoln was my idol. Helen Keller was my idol. Those people who fought for the rights of others were the ones that I admired the most. And as I was growing up, I wanted to be a defense attorney. That was my main goal. I wanted to be part of the law. I wanted to be part of the process that gave an innocent person a chance at not only redemption because they had not committed a crime, but a sense of dignity still, even though they may be involved in the criminal justice system. So that was a very early start for me, with just feeling very connected to people who needed a hand.
Right.
Alongside that, I was always in my school, in the public school system, in the libraries. And from third grade, as long as I can remember on up, I was a volunteer in the library. It was basically shelving those books, but always having my hands on a book, having my nose in a book literally was my world. Reading was my world. I did experience some pretty intense trauma as a child, and that was my escape. Books were my escape. Writing in a journal was my escape. And so the world of books has just always been part of my life. The world of words has always been part of my life. And as I grew into young adulthood, I took the trauma of my childhood and manipulated it to the point of causing harm to others and to myself. And along the way, I actually started a family much sooner than I would have anticipated I would have started one. And I did not go to college because of that, which was actually looking back, of course, over the course of my life, that was not a bad idea for me. That was not a bad thing to happen, because I probably would have been a very, very wild young adult in college. Looking back at it.
Would you mind going into that? Or because it's kind of like we skipping through and sometimes the most people relate to is something that may have happened to them as well. And if you are comfortable talking about it, I would love to touch on what happened and how you dealt with it, because it could be the most important part of your story, how
Absolutely,
you became who you are today, because we all
absolutely.
either
So
let it destroy or we will learn from it.
either way, yeah, you get two choices with it, and you
Yeah.
decide what you want to do with it. So I would honestly say that the first half of my life was the poorer of that choice.
Mhm.
I experienced at the hand of multiple people, not within part of my family, which I feel is a big blessing in my life,
Hmm.
sexual childhood trauma. And then at the age of 14, I was sexually assaulted. And from that, over the next 2 to 3 years, that built up an intense amount of anger in my mind that I used to then lash out against others
Was it dealt
and
with at
basically
all,
treat.
or
I'm sorry.
did you have anybody to deal with it, or you just kept it for yourself?
No, it was the era, the generation, whatever you want to call it, of shame,
Mhm.
where you didn't speak about it, you didn't bring it up because it was from adults, and you weren't going to
Yeah.
be believed, and this couldn't possibly have happened.
Mhm.
And what did I do to cause this?
Yeah.
And it was riddled with shame. That was the first half of my life, was nothing but living with shame and inner turmoil.
Isn't it insanity that you always,
Yes.
if
And
something like that
so
happened, you feel that you did something wrong?
absolutely. And so you keep
Mm.
quiet, you don't say anything about it.
Mhm.
And so I became pregnant at age 16
Mhm.
and graduated high school, but I basically lost my college scholarship that I had earned.
Yeah.
And I was a high marking student, part of the honor society, all around, normal person during school. But then on the weekends, I was a totally different person, living basically two different lives. I really felt like I had two different people in my mind most of the time. The one who was overachieving, high achieving,
Hmm.
people pleasing, caring about my family, caring about reputations, and the other part of me that could care less about any of that.
Wow, that's
So
amazing. Well, looking back today with your wisdom that you have today, what do you think? How do you explain it for yourself?
my eyes were actually opened about 5 years ago by a mental health therapist
Okay.
who gave me the life altering information that I'd never been provided.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically shared with me that I had been living with a firefighter protecting my 9-year-old child self all of my life. That when the first instance happened when I was 9 years old, that firefighter came into my mind
Mm-hmm.
to protect me from everything else that would happen for the
Right.
rest of my life. That firefighter was there, right there beside me and protecting me.
Mhm.
And it turned me into, unfortunately, even though my firefighter and I are on good terms now, it turned me into a very perfectionistic, controlling, black and white person. If things are not in my control, I'm going to get hurt. If
Mhm.
things are not in my control, the people I love are going to get hurt, which trickled down into my relationships with my two daughters, that I became overprotective. I kept them from things of the world because I thought the world was going to damage them, was going
Well,
to
for
harm
good reason, because you
them.
had a
With good
very
reason, yes.
personal experience. Yeah.
Yes. So I don't look back on the child rearing years of my children with shame or with guilt, but a little bit of regret, because I wish I had sought the appropriate mental health help
Yeah.
a lot sooner and learned a lot more.
Right. Yeah. But
So
I skipped because I interrupted your story. So you are becoming pregnant at 16. What happened?
yes,
Did you have a father around, or what
yes, we
how
did
did
get
your life look like?
married for 20 years. Out of that relationship came our two beautiful daughters.
Mhm.
It was not a good ending to our relationship. Neither one of us handled it well. The reasons were not good. The response was not good.
Hmm.
It caused quite a bit of animosity for many, many years. And moving past that is very challenging, especially when I had not yet understood what all was going on in my mind, what
Right.
all had been holding me for all of those years. When I finally understood that, literally it was so many light bulbs went off in my head, it could have been a comet going off
I'm
because
sure
it
it
was
affected
just,
your relationships going on,
it was
and
such a revelation that I finally understood I'm safe. And with my now husband, we've been together now for 7 years
Mhm.
and married for 5. And it's a completely different relationship. It's a completely safe environment. It's a partnership. And I've learned through counseling along the way that this is what you can achieve in a relationship when you know the basis for what's happening, underlying
Yeah,
causes.
yeah,
So that was wonderful. So I did not go to college right out of high school, which was a big regret, but at the same time, probably a very big blessing. And just spent the next 7 years really looking for what am I supposed to do with my life?
yeah.
So I went into banking, I went into medical, I was actually a paralegal assistant for a little bit, which was one of my favorite jobs. And just all around the board, just doing different things, human resources, payroll, all these. And I never felt like I belonged anywhere, honestly.
Hmm.
And 7 years into our marriage, our second daughter came along. And so at that point, it was basically I would be working in order to pay for the car to get to work, the gas to put into the car, and childcare.
Yeah.
So we determined, you know what, I'm just going to be a stay-at-home mom. And if I can find something part-time along the way, then that's what I'll do. And lo and behold, I ended up with a role, which is a whole other wonderful story for that I worked with for 17 years. And I helped manage online book clubs for public libraries and publishing houses. I worked directly with Penguin Random
Oh,
House for
that sounds
5 of
like
those
dream
years.
job for
It
you.
was, Vera, I
Yeah.
could sit on my back porch in a chair in the sun and get paid to read. And
I
it was
love
like,
that.
I can't get this up. This is wonderful. So I was there with them for 17 years. Company is dearreader.com. Still love their services. And it was just it was a job that I was comfortable with. It was it was stable.
Yeah.
It just
What
wasn't
did you
something that was
exactly
going
do?
to
I didn't
move.
catch that.
I'm sorry.
What was exactly the job you did for them?
It was about this long. We managed online book clubs for public
Okay.
libraries and publishing houses. So we would provide a snippet, a chapter a day, basically, of 11 different genres of books
Hmm.
to get the reader hooked within 5 minutes. And by the
Oh,
end of the week, if they liked the book, then they would go to the library and check it out to increase the circulation statistics, or they would go to the bookstore and purchase the book and increase the sales.
right.
So great partnerships with
Excellent.
many authors, many publishing houses. It was literally the dream job. I absolutely loved it, but it just wasn't going to provide for my work optional years in the most optimum way.
Yeah.
So I kind of branched out a little bit, looked at a couple of different things, looked into writing just a little bit, but didn't go anywhere with that. And then I happened upon a LinkedIn executive administrator position for a new startup company that just blew my mind. And I was like, this sounds like an amazing opportunity, not only to be of service to people with traumatic brain injuries, accidents, auto accidents, stuff like that. But it was a field I'd never worked in. I'd
Mhm.
never been an executive administrator. And the doctor who started the business hired me outside of people who had master's degrees, PhDs, experience in the field. And part of that was because of my tenacity, because I reached out to him 3 or 4 times and said, I have these really good ideas about what I think could really work for your business and using this application and this application. And I couldn't stop myself from wanting to provide all this information. It was something that was very much out of my comfort zone, but he hired me.
But it resonated with you.
Yeah, it was just very different than what I had ever done before. And I've always been a very introverted, very low self-confident, low self-esteem person, which again is trauma induced.
Yeah.
And that just kind of overwhelmed in so many different areas of my life. But I got this position with Dr. Barna, and it was fantastic. I loved it. I loved building things. I loved working with the team. There were just some bumps along the road that were a little bit too much for me to deal with when my life started becoming extremely stressful outside of the job.
Yeah.
Which is when my story of Java and Ink basically started. So
How
it
long
goes
ago
from all
is
of that up to this.
Yeah, no, hey, it has very logical. Sometimes we take several different, seemingly unrelated paths
Absolutely.
to become who we are today. So how long
Yeah.
ago is this when you started the business?
This was in August of 2022 when I officially started Java and Ink. Prior to that, I had worked with a single parenting website. When I had mentioned getting into a little bit of writing along the way, I had applied for a position that I actually found on LinkedIn for, they were looking for single divorced parent writers. And I talked to them, reached out to them, had a great interview with them, and they hired me actually just 3 months prior to starting with the executive administrator role. And I would write 1,000, 1,500 word blogs, articles for them, do book reviews for them, do listicles based on different parameters of being a single parent or being a divorced parent or being in the sandwich generation, which I was currently in at that time. I was still homeschooling my middle school daughter and taking care of my parents. And so
How did you
that was
call it?
just,
What kind of generation? Sandwich
we're
generation?
called the sandwich generation.
Never heard
So
that
we're
term.
still raising the little ones, but
I
we're taking
see.
care of the older ones and we're trying to be ourselves in the middle. So
Right,
we're a big
right.
sandwich.
Oh, wow. That's the first
So
time I heard the term used
yep,
this
there
way.
was a
Yeah.
lot of content writing on that part and empty nesters because I was getting prepared for that season of life. So I had a little bit of writing experience, actually paid writing experience at that point. And August of 2022, the pivotal moment that told me things have to be a little bit different. I had moved to, or I had, let me just one little caveat here. I had lived in a small town in Florida in Plant City my entire life, born and raised there, 40 years there. And my family and I were very, very close. I have 3 older brothers, had my parents. We were a close family. And I moved when I married my now husband, I moved to Fort Lauderdale. And there was a great feeling of disconnect, especially between myself and my mom, because we had literally been best friends for so many years. We had such a really, really good relationship. Even though we had those little moments, we had really, really good relationship. And when I moved back up to the Central Florida area, I moved to Orlando and made a point of going to be with my mom on a weekly basis. Just taking one day a week and saying, I need to go be with my mom. As that time with her progressed, we as the family started seeing more and more signs of a cognitive impairment. Her driving was a little off. Her organization, she'd always been the most organized person, was just a bit off. She couldn't balance her checkbook anymore. She forgot appointments. She wasn't cleaning her cat's litter pan, she was facetious about cleaning things. And so we just kept noticing these things. Well, in August of 2022, her aunt passed away in Georgia, and we were going to drive to Georgia for the funeral.
Right.
So mom was supposed to drive to my house, which was 60 miles away, and then we were going to go from my home. And we did not hear from my mom, and she was lost for 12 hours.
Oh, wow.
Where no idea. And at that time, and this is one of the biggest things that I would like to really point out, in the state of Florida, I don't know what it is across the country, but in the state of Florida, you cannot put a silver alert out for an individual if they have not been diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia. They're kind enough to put
I
out a
didn't know
purple
that.
alert, but it is a
Hmm.
little bit different.
Wow.
So we were able to put a purple alert out. We had a bolo out on my mother. We had to be on the lookout for my mother. That was kind of funny. And the sheriff's department of both counties that we were in let me know as quickly as soon as they could, we've spotted her here. She was on this camera. We saw her here. And she drove all the way to my home, and she drove all the way back to her county in that time span.
Wow.
And had no idea that it had happened. She had no recollection that she'd been driving for 12 hours. She only stopped at a gas station because she recognized she was out of gas. But she had no idea. But she could remember my phone number for the gas station attendant to call me. So that was the first inclination of there is something significantly wrong here. This is not just normal cognitive decline as you get older.
Right, with the age, right?
And so I took her for neuropsychological testing. Let's see what the levels are. Let's see what we're dealing with. Worked very closely with her at the time, primary caregiver, to learn, what are we dealing with? And her impairment, according to the testing, was almost already to the advanced dementia stage because of how deeply impaired she was in so many areas. But she looked fine on the outside. She was as happy as ever, cordial, jovial, joking all the time. Still kind of met her ADLs very well. But as time progressed, it happened again. And this time she was lost for 18 hours. And then she was involved in an automobile accident. And then it happened again.
How
And
far
third
were
time,
you from her that
were
time?
taken away.
Oh, still the 16 miles away from her?
No, the other two, well, one time she ended up from Lakeland into Tampa. So that was about 40 miles away that we found her. The highway patrolman found her. But the other time, it was just down the road.
No, I
And
meant
so
how far did you live from her at that
I
time?
was the 60 miles, yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And
That's scary. That's
it's extremely, and it's you're helpless.
yeah.
You're absolutely helpless. You cannot do anything but sit and wait because there's a possibility she'll show up at my house.
Yeah.
So you have to just sit and wait. And that's not the normal reaction for someone who's missing somebody. We want to search for them.
That's right.
So it was a progression of so many different things. It was very hard for her to admit to giving up her car keys and then selling the vehicle, because it was a matter of if I did not sell the vehicle, she was going to find those keys. She would turn that house upside down for those keys. And so it was just a process of I'm there a lot more. I'm staying overnight a lot more. I'm walking through all of this with her. And it just got to the point where I could not manage the demands of the administrative role anymore. I just could not. I was making mistakes. And I felt horrible about my mistakes because they were taking up other people's valuable time. They were causing harm to other people's cases and delays. And I was just, I politely stepped back and said, I'm sorry. I can't harm your business anymore.
You
I
can
can't.
focus 100%. Yeah.
Right. So
I'm assuming your mom was by herself then?
my oldest brother, and this is another actual part of the story that I would like to just kind of get into for just a moment. This is not my first rodeo as a caregiver. So I was a caregiver for my mother-in-law of my first husband for a time, and we lost her to a glioblastoma multiforme in her brain, a cancer in her brain. And then my father, I was at his side and taking care of him for 2 months in the hospital and in rehab in 2016 when he passed away. And then my aunt, my mom's only sibling, and then my grandmother. And I was a caregiver for my brother, but not with him when he passed away. So we lost my oldest brother as well. So within a span of 5 years, my mom lost her family. There's 3 kids left, which of course we're still her family, but she lost her husband, her mother, her sibling. She lost so much.
Yeah.
And we believe that part of her dementia progression has been because of unresolved grief. So
Very
I've
well
already
be. Yeah.
walked through the end stages of life with 5 of my family members, preparing me, honestly, for this one, because this one this one hurts the most.
Yeah.
This is my friend, and she's ceased to be my mom. One week I'm her mother, one week I'm her sister.
Yeah.
She has ceased to be my mom, but she has become Jean to me. She has become a friend to me. So we have so much fun when we're together. It ended up being, as the dementia progressed, as she developed more inabilities to meet her ADLs, which are the activities of daily living, we made and wandering on busy roads on foot, walking 2 to 3 miles away from her home. Again, we can't find her, not sleeping at night, not eating, not being able to take care of her personal hygiene needs. We called in home care for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. My brother was able to be there as much as he could while still maintain his full-time job, which was a ways away from their home. And so she wasn't completely alone where her living situation was, but it was getting so much worse. We
Very
knew she
complicated.
for
Yeah.
7 care
Mm.
because of the wandering, the inability to, the sundowning, the inability to sleep at night, the aggression, the depression, and just an overall, we know it's time. So in July of 2022 was when, or excuse me, 2023 was when she moved. She had a fall at the memory care residence that we moved her to, and they couldn't tell us anything about it at all. They just found her on the floor half naked, took her to the hospital. I'm like, okay, this is not appropriate. So she did not stay there. When she left the hospital, she went to a rehab facility because we're like, okay, you know, we'll see what's happening. We'll see what we can do next. And she's been there ever since, in their memory care unit. And she's happy. She's content. She's called the queen because she rules the place. She's genuinely cared for, and I don't fear.
Yeah.
I can sleep and I don't fear anymore. So when I left the administrative position and knew that this was going to become something of a permanent nature, even though it wasn't going to require my 24/7 care for her,
Yeah.
that's kind of when Java and ink came up. It's a funny story behind it, because I was with my daughters on some vacation or something, and I don't know where we were at. They have tattoos. I don't. I'm deathly afraid of needles. I don't think I would ever get one. But I was like, why doesn't somebody create a hipster tattoo parlor where they serve coffee and tea and maybe scones, and they play hip jazzy music, and you get nice tattoos? And there's none of this loud, hard, which I love heavy metal music, don't get me wrong, I love Metallica, but there's none of this playing anywhere, and it doesn't feel like you're being assaulted and everybody's angry around you. Make it so cool. And you could call it, oh, Java and ink. And it was just something that stuck in my brain as a coffee tattoo parlor idea.
Yeah, sounds
And it
like
was
it. When I
years
first
ago.
saw it, it sounds like it, yes.
That was years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then when all of this started coming to fruition, my oldest daughter is a queen entrepreneur in her own right. She, in her space where she works, she is the term that the generation, she is just killing it. She's just killing it.
Yeah.
And she's so successful at what she does. And I was struggling financially. I do have the financial support of my husband, bless you, John, but I knew I still needed to make my way. I still needed to provide for my own retirement years.
Yeah.
And she's like, Mom, you're an editor, you're a writer at heart. You're really, really good at helping people see things in different ways to get something out of them.
Yeah.
Why don't you think about getting on Upwork as an editor and a writer? And so I built a profile. I threw myself out there. I got a $5 job. and I didn't touch it for a year. I didn't touch it for a year. And then I went through a program that she actually created that optimized my profile, taught me how to do proposals, taught me how to follow up, how to respond, how to price. I mean, the whole 9 yards with it. And it took 6 months of development, of building, of understanding. And then it just took off the end of last year. And my long-term clients are all from Upwork. And it's just been an apps. I was top rated within like 3 months. I had a 100% job success score within the same amount of time. It was crazy to me that I was able to take this talent, gift, whatever you call it, and push it out and monetize it.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, I'm the person who I'll just sit and watch the fine print at the bottom of the screen of a commercial and say, spelling error. I just spot them. Just like a toddler can spot the McDonald's arches. That's just me. I've been doing it since I was 9 years old.
Yeah.
I literally wrote a letter to the Kraft food company when I was 9 years old and told them, you need to change the instructions on your box of macaroni and cheese because you didn't say to put the macaroni and cheese back into the pot after you drained everything before you add the milk and the cheese and the butter. So my macaroni and cheese basically went down the drain. So I literally wrote them a letter. And I said, you need to take instructions. So I've been an editor most of my life.
But what I loved about that story is your own daughter created a course that helped you do that.
Yes.
That's amazing.
It's just been the support, familial support, friend support, even client support that I've received over the years that I've been doing this has been, and it's only been 2 years, but still has been phenomenal because I've learned it has to be a community effort. It really does, because you can't just rely on your own everything to push yourself out there, which again, introverted person, control freak, I feel like I should be able to do it myself. So
I think many professionals kind of feel like if they admitted that they need help, it will view them as a weak, and so they don't. And unfortunately, it's much more expensive and painful to go through the period before you realize that it would speed up the process if you hire a professional.
absolutely. And it is one of the best pieces of advice I've ever received is if you're a writer, don't you dare be your own editor. Don't even attempt it, because you will only see your perspective.
Yeah.
That's all you can see.
That's
and
true.
as an editor, all of us who do this work bring a different perspective. And if you do it well, you help a writer grow.
Yeah.
You don't put them down. You don't insult their ability. You don't insult their word use or choice. You help them grow and understand there are different ways that you can do this.
While still respecting their style.
Absolutely.
And personality, yeah.
Absolutely. My slogan is, as an editor, I make the suggestions, you make the decisions.
Yeah, and I can definitely vouch for that, because it's when you're writing, and I write a lot, you can keep going back and edit 100 million times, and you are never done, because it's always possible to say it differently, and then you just end up in a circle of it's never ready. You need somebody else's eyes that is expert to see what you don't see. Just like with other coaching, services, when you are in your own head, you only see your perspective. When somebody else looks at it without the emotions involved, and can see the blind spots that you may not see, suddenly it clicks, and it's like a light bulb moment. I
love the light bulb moments.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. That's love for, it starts for many of us with love of reading, and then it naturally transforms into writing, and then look at that, and you just created wonderful business for yourself. That is basically dream come true.
It is. I'm working with words every day and I love words. I've always, you can say so much and literally say it with a very short amount of words.
Yeah.
But when you come up with those who want the flowery language, who want the flowing, emotion invoked language behind it, that's a dream to work with because you're feeling an author's heart. You're sensing, I really feel like I have something to contribute with my words.
Yeah.
And to be able to come alongside an author and I don't want to say help them improve, but just help them speak
Yeah.
what they want to say.
Clarify the message. Yeah.
Just put it in a way that the person they're trying to reach will receive it in the best way. That's what I think I do. This is your voice.
Yeah.
If you heard yourself this way, would it mean the same to you? With just a couple of different changes here. Don't get me started on the Oxford comma because I'm a stickler. They're not going to get my Oxford comma away from me. But word choices we can discuss.
Yeah, but is it fun? What you just said, it just hit me something in my head because I have been following copywriters very, very religiously for years because when you are in business, you have to kind of refine your message over and over to really resonate with your audience that you wish to present yourself to. So I have been learning this art for years because I never had an issue to write, but I had issue to keep it concise and short. And that's still my problem.
Me too sometimes.
Yeah, when you said that, it just because I'm thinking at this point what you just said, you were referring to book writers because the flowery language is more appropriate for the book writing and it has its audience. What I kept hearing lately, and you tell me if what you think, is the more you write as you would speak, the more clean the language is, the more personal it is, the more relatable it is. And
absolutely,
I know that there are people writing books with AI intelligence, which drives me nuts, but that's the world we live in. But if it's you writing it and then having it maybe refined by either editor or the AI, if you insist,
yeah,
it may be helpful. But what do you think about this difference between putting all your prose out with very flowery language or keeping it very real like we speak?
exactly. And I just went
attention
through.
Span.
Yes, I'm a member of ACES, the Society for Editing, and we just had a webinar about plain language, simple language. And that was one of the biggest things that I came away from it with was do not write your content to just write content.
Yeah.
You're talking with someone. You're trying to have a conversation with someone. You may be trying to convince them about something or a product or a service, which is fine, but don't write it in such a way that they have to reread, and I'm speaking specifically of printed, that they have to reread multiple times to understand what you're trying to tell them.
Yeah.
So exactly what you're saying, write as you would talk with someone, write as you would speak.
Yeah.
And one of my main clients I work with is a wealth management consultant company. And we work with clients who are, the term is AUM, in the billions. And they're very refined. They're very, I don't want to say upscale, but they know their business and you can tell they know their business. And so the wording, the vocabulary does need to be on a little bit higher level because the clientele, their target audience are people of a little bit higher level. So in those instances, it's just a matter of and I'm not going to be able to come up with an exact example, but in their content, anytime I see the word got, it's gone. It's gone. It's just not part of the vernacular that comes across as sophisticated. So I'm not going to put in a 13-syllable word for a 1-syllable word, but just choosing the right type of vocabulary for who you're trying to reach.
And that's a brilliant point, because not many people think about what their audience really is.
Right.
If you have to know your audience to be able to do that. And I
Right.
think that's the biggest problem many people have, that they know very, very intimately, they are passionate about their business, services, products, but they don't know who they are talking
Right.
to shape that message so it resonates with them.
Exactly. And there's two parts of marketing. There's two parts of marketing and copywriting when you put them together. The first part is know your brand voice. Absolutely. Story Brand is one of my favorite books. I've lost his name. I want to say Donald Miller. I'm so sorry if I get it wrong, but it's like, know your brand voice. How do you speak? What personality is your brand? But the second aspect of marketing and copywriting together is, who are you talking to?
Yeah.
Who are you trying to reach with your brand, with your product? And you may
Mhm.
know exactly how your brand sounds and pushes it out there. Chevy is durability, and Dodge is rugged and tough. And we're not going to talk about Ford, but I'm going to get in trouble for that. But who are you talking to?
Yeah.
So a Chevy truck is not talking to a soccer mom. A
Right.
Chevy truck is talking to the man who needs the durability and the towing capacity. So they don't push their marketing of their trucks towards the soccer moms.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes for brand and copywriting marketing on any level. You know who you are, like you say, you're passionate about what you have to offer. But if you don't understand who you're offering it to and what their needs are, what their pain points are, you're not going to meet them where they're at.
Yeah. This is actually excellent masterclass in copywriting, because that's the stages that I went through myself. And I remember when COVID hit, I had a hard time to be online, because I have been my whole life, I have been in services, sale, entrepreneurship, but always face to face. And I was able to relate to people based on, their whole persona. They're based on their body language, based on the reflection, what they reflect back to me. And I was very successful. But now COVID hit and I almost didn't exist online. And I was relearning that was my biggest issue at the beginning. It's like, who am I even talking to? Because you don't know, if you don't know your audience, if you don't know what their desires are and what their wishes are and their pain points are, how do you, and it doesn't mean twisting yourself into pretzel and being somebody
Not
you
at
are
all.
not,
Not
but
at all.
at the same time, they will only relate to you if you mention it in their own language,
Exactly.
if you hear what they are struggling with. And that's really
Absolutely.
hard. That's the part when not many people realize how powerful copywriting is,
Right.
because anybody can write whatever,
Yes.
but when you have a copywriter who is professional, this is what they are dealing with. This is not just the time per word. This is the level of research they do on the audience for the business,
Yeah.
to understand what that audience is actually looking for, and do we have something that we can offer them in that space. It's
Definitely.
very complicated, beautiful process. I'm stunned that I love to talk about it, because you obviously know what you're doing, and that's why you are sought after
And
professionally.
I think too, my ability to be seasoned in this, because I come from the generation of dad sitting at the table reading the newspaper,
Yeah.
because that was the medium, that was what was available. And as a copywriter in this age, you better catch them with the first line,
True.
because they're going to scroll past if not.
Yeah.
And another interesting aspect that I've just recently really come to learn more so is in the editing space, it's not just about words. As editors, if we're so inclined, we go into looking at different types of visual editing. So like I know how to work with TinEye. I know how to work with the Google reverse image search and with photo forensics. So even those things where I'm editing words, I'm editing words, I'm editing words, at the same time, I can also tell when something might be off with an image. And it's like there's so many new aspects to not only copywriting, but editing
Yeah.
that we're not just the Hart's Rules or the Associated Press book, style books and things anymore. It's we have to be in tune with what every aspect of the content that's being pushed out there and make sure that it not only meets the brand guidelines, but again, attracts the audience and gets them to stay, gets them to stop the scroll is the term that I love to hear.
Yeah, and
Because
that's
it's like,
really
if I'm
getting
not producing
harder and
something that's
harder.
not stopping a scroll, I'm not serving my clients.
Yeah, that's becoming harder and harder because we are we are loaded with information coming at us from every
Yes.
angle, and people just start skim through headlines.
Yeah.
And it's becoming really big problem. I want to ask you one thing also that came to mind when you were saying that. There was one time I learned, and I think that's really, and it's still problem for me as well. When you write the way that the reader can finish the sentence for you, you lost them because you are not telling them anything new.
That's also the person that you're talking in conversation with who finishes your sentences. Now, when you're in a relationship and you finish each other's sentences, that's different. That's the Frozen Disney movie. That's okay.
Right.
But when the reader can just predict what your story is before you finish telling it, you absolutely, you've lost them. They haven't found what makes you different. What makes what I'm reading unique and different from what I just saw 3 seconds ago.
Or what makes them think, wow, I never thought of it this way.
Absolutely. The different perspective.
Yeah, yeah. And this is art. This is not just being able to write. This is really, you have to look at it from so many different angles, and it's just fascinating for me. I love
it. Is. It's one of those things that engineering just fascinates me. We live close to NASA, Lockheed Martin, all of these different things where people just create amazing things with the logic and the brain power and all of these things that I just will never understand. But for me, writing, even when it is writing about financial matters or writing about construction, I love my construction growth or customer growth client. He's just phenomenal because we just mesh so well. But writing about industries, editing industries that I've never really been a part of, it's still with feeling. It's still, you're concerned about your retirement. You're concerned about your family's legacy. You're concerned about your children spending their wealthy inheritance wisely. You're concerned about safety on a construction site. You're concerned that people get home to their families because people look for them. It's all invoking emotions. Every time when you write, when you edit, there's a part of emotionality that goes into the aspects of these art forms because you're trying to reach somebody's mind with a bit of logic, but also with a bit of different perspectives. And you're trying to reach somebody's heart because, yeah, my husband's in construction and I want him to come home. So will you please be cautious when you drive down and you see those orange cones?
That's right. Yeah.
You push it in. You push in the emotions.
Everything that seems to be boring, like technology or finances or stuff that is involved a lot of science, you can always retell the facts, but the stories sell. It's the fact tells, stories sell, somebody said.
Right.
And it has to be the proper part of the facts and emotions that actually make someone to pay attention and read it on.
Definitely. You can tell anybody all the scientific facts behind Haley's Comet and why it exists and what it's doing and how these components are interacting with these components and all of that. But when you describe to a person who's never seen it, the wonder and the beauty of what you're seeing, it's a totally different form of writing.
You know, I was smiling when you were talking, because for some reason it just came across my mind. I have several companies on my email list. Unfortunately, some of them I never signed for, but I'm not deleting them yet because I may need their service. And one of them is a local company that is in air conditioning business. And I believe that once I use them, and ever since they are sending me emails, and I just noticed, and I was really like, they need copywriter badly. Because every single email they send is, the subject line is duct cleaning. And I'm like, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, I wonder how much business they get from it if that's all they send you all year long.
Right.
And I actually started putting those emails in one file. So when I go to it and I just see, I don't know, 50 emails that say exactly same thing, how is it supposed to catch somebody's attention? Unless they hit you in that right timing when like, oh my God, I need my duct cleaned.
Like in the middle of July in Central Florida, if I get an email that says, was your electric bill higher than normal this past month?
Yeah.
I'm going to click on that.
Yes.
And then it tells me it could be because your ducts need to be cleaned.
Yeah.
You've sold me because you've hit me where my pain point has been this month because my electric bill has doubled.
Yeah. Can we do masterclass on that? Yeah. No, this is brilliant because it's, you know, when you are running your own business, and many of my friends are that listen to this podcast, you are not becoming expert in everything. And this is very, very, very important part of your business, because if you cannot speak to anybody, nobody's buying your products or services.
Right.
And
Right.
it's valuable. And I have heard, you know, many times people was like, oh my God, but this is so expensive. It's just writing few emails. Well, it is fundamental for you if you don't get it right.
Yeah.
If you just send random emails for months and nobody's responding because it doesn't catch anybody's attention, then it proves to be fundamental for your business.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's like having a physical store and not worrying what is in the window.
Yes. Very
It's like,
much, yeah.
you know, well, we'll just put whatever, and if it doesn't work, you don't look back at it. Maybe it needs to change. You just keep doing the same thing. Yeah.
That doesn't work that way. And it's I understand this. Sometimes I feel like it could be considered like a put down to some people, but I do understand the logic behind it. Anybody can write. Anybody can write, but not everybody can be a writer.
That's right.
There's a difference between the two. There's a real difference between the two.
Yeah.
And my husband admits that, so I feel better about it.
No, it's brilliant. It's excellent. And I have one more question, since we are kind of helping other businesses to look at things differently. You mentioned that you started your business on LinkedIn, which is professional platform. It's wonderful. That's how we met together. And so what is your opinion? You mentioned that you refined your proposals, you learn your way how to optimize your profile and everything to be successful businessman. I see so many people every single day, and this is not the I have been in sales my whole life, and it's so not working anymore. And I don't know if it's just because today is different because we have seen it all and it works differently. But I believe if you want to send me a marriage proposal, at least send me invite me for a coffee first.
Absolutely.
And this is a joke that I use when somebody, the moment you connect, shoots a direct, you know, offer into your mailbox. And even worse when they didn't even bother to look at your profiles and figure out what you actually do and what kind of audience you may serve, or learn anything about you. I have seen so many completely unrelated offers. And I understand everybody is trying to do their job and, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But, or somebody that is connecting with me and ask me 3 different times, so what do you do?
It's all right here. It's right there on my profile. If you
It
can
drives
read
me
it.
bananas.
Here's the link.
How do you answer that? So what do you do? You are on LinkedIn and you connected with me for some reason. What is that reason?
You had a specific thing, and I will not be able to find it. I'm gonna go stalk you right now. I will not be able to find it, but you had a specific thing within your profile at the very top, joy and purpose after 50. I got 5 months. I'm not there yet, but some days I feel like I'm there. And my life, because it's been so shadowed by trauma and healing from trauma, finding joy and purpose is my squirrels, is my birds, is my family.
Yeah.
Frankly, is Disney World. That's my joy. When I can connect with someone who has been where I've been, even though we experienced 2 different things. You experienced a passing, I experienced a divorce. In some ways, they're very similar. They're very, very similar because the grief that goes along with those 2 happenings is similar.
Yeah.
And so I am not client well on LinkedIn. My success has actually come from the Upwork platform. I've actually received 2 clients from LinkedIn, but it's been very minimal, very sweet projects that I love.
Sorry, I
working on.
misunderstood.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I would love to be more successful on LinkedIn, but I joined the community for people like you, to learn from people like you, to have the sage wisdom that I have some season behind me, but I am not the smartest person in the room. And I don't want to do the next half of my life without community of people who get me, who understand the brain fog when I just have to step away for 2 hours from my work because I've got it's stopped, who understand when I'm, having the hot flash at night, it's the Sahara Desert and it's just going to happen and I didn't sleep well. So to have the gathering of people like you and some others that are on LinkedIn that just allow me to be me and accept me, those are the people that I want to connect with the most on LinkedIn in that space. I actually had the opportunity this morning to pitch myself to someone who commented on one of my posts. And I haven't posted a lot lately. And I'm like, how tacky. I'm not going to do that. This person knows me. This person knows what I do. If this person is interested in working with me as an editor of their ebook, I am happy to talk with him because I would love to edit that ebook. It is so fascinating. But I'm not going to put myself out there. I'm not going to send him a direct message and pitch my services because he was genuinely interacting with a passion post that I put out there. And for me, that's what it means. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Like, and I think this is not ask me for anything. When you don't even know me, there's no connection. There's no attempt at connection. It's just click and send it off. And I'm just like, do you know anything about me and my haunted mansion obsession?
No. They don't really bother with that. And it's the era of cold calling that is way long over. If you don't understand that people are not even answering unknown numbers anymore, it doesn't work. Don't stop pushing your salespeople to do that. It's really making people mad. And LinkedIn is all about, for me as well. And we actually had experience with that personally together because Susan
There's a
approached
level
me
of mistrust
with
out there now.
really smart and wicked line, and it was beautiful message, and I immediately liked it. And then when I suggested that we meet, because I really genuinely wanted to meet her, we had some misunderstanding, and she started assuming that I may be looking at her as a client, which I did not. And then I returned back with some assuming of my own. And so it is, but you know what? We worked it out because she didn't give up, I didn't give up, and we were looking at it and was like, okay, so I assumed this and she assumed that, and I assumed this and she assumed that, and we actually worked it out in writing before we actually called each other up and spent some time together. And
Right.
it's just like in personal relationship, you never know what the other person think, what
Absolutely.
kind of moments you may have catch him at, but they may be dealing with completely different things, and then they just respond, and it in writing it can be always translated differently, and
Yes, definitely.
you cannot pass the emotion in short messages. It's just, you know, it hits at the time where it hits. And it's important to kind of, if you really worry and care about becoming to know the other person, or to get to know the other person, it is important that you take time and learn about it.
Definitely.
And I think that's what LinkedIn became, and I really actually love it, because you building relationships. You are not selling to everybody right away. Please stop doing that. It's just absolutely annoying. And if somebody, you know, and I actually received several pitches when I politely responded, because I know they are doing their job and I have been in sales. So I kind of politely respond, hey, I wish you just look at my profile, because you would know that I'm not your either target audience.
Right.
And they slap you with another automated message that doesn't even reflect on what you just said. And then it's just click off. Then it's just goodbye, you know?
Yeah.
No, this is, even though we are on a computer and we don't know each other, this allows you to get to know people.
Yeah,
It
it
is
doesn't feel like a
Yeah.
virtual. It feels like I've got my cup of coffee sitting right here and we're
Yeah.
enjoying each other's company.
Yeah. And it's important to stop looking at this like this is just some cash machine that I will be, if I shoot out 50, 100 messages a day, maybe two people will be hooked. My gosh, it's really, and I like that some social media are actually catching this behavior and blocking it, because this is not why it was created.
Right.
And we can have a whole different discussion about social media.
True.
Yeah. But it's, once you realize that you still have to be a person that has certain values and moral values and believes in something, stop copying everybody else. Stop being ass, if I have to say it, because I have read comments on things that I stopped myself and I was like, I wonder if that person would say it into somebody's face.
Right.
Just because you are behind a keyboard and you may not be known to me.
Right.
I didn't deal with any attacks like that, but I have seen it with other people. And I was like, I wonder if you would do the same if we were sitting face to face. Because just because we don't see you behind a keyboard doesn't mean that you get away with being asshole.
Exactly. And I did experience this twice on LinkedIn, where you know that I write a blog, and my blog, it correlates my experiences with my mom, the crazy squirrels that live in my backyard, and my business. They all seem to tie together most of the time. And there was one blog that I wrote, and I attached the link of the blog, but I gave just a little summary about it at the beginning. And I had someone who took their time to go into the comments and literally said to me, please stop writing so much. I can't read everything that you say. And I was like, and I can show you, there's a little button on your mouse that you can do this with, and you can go right past what I'm doing. It doesn't, and I actually sent them a message and I said, I don't know where you are in your journey,
Mm.
but I just would like to provide you with some friendly advice that this was rude and it uncalled for. I appreciate you speaking out, but you could have said this to me in a personal message
Yeah.
instead of
Oh,
throwing it
tell
out there.
me. Yeah, and this, you touched on another thing that really bothers me, and I hope that people will take it to their heart. When you are in a space with people that are doing similar things than you are, it's maybe same industry or same clients or something like that, don't ever put them down publicly in the comments, put in question their expertise, put in
No,
question, disagree with them. I mean,
no.
disagree respectably is a good, healthy
Yes,
thing. But if you just there for a reason to put somebody's expertise down and just
yeah,
make them seen that they don't know what they are talking about,
right.
that's very, very bad.
Yeah, if
And
you
I have
prefer
seen that
short
happen.
form content, then go find somebody who does short form content. That is
Yeah.
not me when I write about my blog. I
Yeah.
am so long-winded and I don't care.
This
I
is
don't care.
especially you're a writer.
I don't care. This is my life. This is
Yeah.
me. This is my personal
And
experience.
there is
This is
such a
how
thing
I
as
can
to
make people
scroll
aware of
by.
dementia.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't care if it's long-winded.
Yeah.
If it helps one person feel supported as a caregiver, if it gives one caregiver the next idea for how to bring a manipulative into the world of their dementia patient, then my goal's done.
Yeah.
I did what I was supposed to do for the day because
You
I
act-
gave somebody some service.
you just reminded me that you developed something super powerful and playful to help with your mom with the interaction.
Oh, we've got so much fun stuff. The woman refuses Play-Doh because she says it's for children and she's not touching it. I don't think she just like it's squishy. She doesn't like it. But I take in puzzles from the company Melissa and Doug that they're wooden and they have little knobs on the shapes and she just holds them and she puts them where they go and she gets it right every time. And I don't normally engage with any type of recording, or I'll take her picture every now and then,
Yeah.
but I try to be very respectful of the environment she's in,
Mm-hmm.
that other people are there in different levels of mental capacity. And so I don't want to invade anyone's privacy. And I don't like to put my mom on display, for lack of a better way to put it.
Yeah.
But when she was doing that puzzle, I watched her having fun.
Yeah.
Living in a nursing home, not knowing who her family is, not missing her cat. I saw my mom, Jean, having fun. And when she finished that puzzle and she looked up at me and smiled with that big smile and clapped her hands, that reassured me that that's not only a memory I'm going to have for the rest of my life, my daughters will have of their grandmother, but I had the notion on my way home, my hour and a half drive home, that I'm like, I could share this with other people. I could show them you can take the toddler's toy that you have in your room that you play with your grandchildren to your mom or dad and give them an ability to feel an accomplishment for 10 minutes in one day. Something that they felt for 60 years of their life as a worker, as a parent, as a child of their own, of their helping their parents, to give someone in such a state of mental decline just a few moments of remembered dignity and success
Enjoy. Yeah.
changes your perspective on
Yeah.
dementia.
Yeah.
It changes it.
Yeah. And it's anybody who ever dealt with dementia person, it is so hard on the loved ones because you are trying to help someone you were very close to, and now they don't even know who you are. And
Yeah,
it could be different outcomes from that interaction, but
absolutely.
every little moments like this that you just mentioned that you can cherish, that actually you both enjoyed, even though both parts both parties for
different.
different reasons.
Yeah, they're different.
It's just it makes your life dealing with it easier as well, because
It really
now
does.
you know what to look for and how to help her
It
be
really
there.
does. And my brothers and I have talked about this on intense levels where, again, being a close family, this is devastating, but I call it devastatingly fascinating because she doesn't remember us as her family. She doesn't miss those things. She looks at pictures. There's no recognition. There's nothing going on in her brain that says anything. She doesn't have that. And I know some people will look at this outlook that we have taken as almost wrong, and you shouldn't feel this way. How could you feel this way? We feel it as a blessing that our mom cannot remember what she cannot remember, because our mom is not grieving every day of her life anymore. She's not grieving all that she's lost. She's not missing her sister, her husband, her mother, her son, her oldest child. She's not missing those things. Do I not have my mom anymore? Yes. But she's not hurting.
But
And
with
that is more important than us being able to sit down with her and say, hey, remember when? That's so much more important because she's not hurting. I can deal with that grief now, and the grief, the anticipatory grief now, and the grief later. She doesn't have to.
Well, you have your
It's a blessing.
priorities straight. You have your priorities straight. And that's, you know, you are there for her and your heart is fully there for her. And that's just beautiful thing, because
Yeah,
we are all a little selfish and
of
worry about
course.
our feelings. And of course, it is very hard to be grieving a living person because you don't have her. You don't
Right,
have her for what you remember.
right.
But it's still, you are capable of creating moments that are
Mhm.
worthy memorizing for you, and
Yep,
creating joyful moments for her, which is really beautiful. And
yep.
that's, you know, it's funny because we spend a lot of time talking about your work that I have a passion for as well, and I love it. But we also spend a lot of time with who you are as a person and what is in your heart, how you can help another human being live dignified, even in this very disturbing decline of mind.
Yeah,
And
it's possible.
it's that goes back to who we are as a people. We can stay who we are despite whatever AI is around us, despite whatever technology we are using. Just stop being a jerk. Remember who you are, and it will come across, and right people will reach out in a business or in life. And I believe that eventually, when we had that little misunderstanding at the beginning, we both felt that this was wrong, that we are assuming things and we really don't know, and we clear it up. And I am really grateful for that, because we
Me
would never
too.
meet. We would
And
never
I
meet.
have to remember too that my trauma brain kicks in every now and then, and
Yeah,
it causes me a level of mistrust of people. And I'm like, okay, tone it down. Just hear the other side. They're not
yeah.
out to get you.
We are having different triggers in our
Yes,
mind that are based on our own experience, that the other person have no idea we
exactly.
went through. So, you
Which
know,
is why I open up, because I
yeah,
am not conflict averse. I am absolutely the person who will be in the middle of the room and say what everybody else wants to say, but they're too afraid to say it. Because I'm like, if you get it out in the open, you can talk about it. Then you can
yes,
resolve it. And if you can't resolve it, at least it feels better because it's not sitting in you anymore.
that's right. Well, I'm glad we did that, because we wouldn't have this beautiful episode of my podcast. So, going back to name of my podcast, Third Chances. What are your third chances, Tom?
I actually had this revelation the other day, and again, it's going to be one of those that this INFJ brain spaghetti stuff upstairs comes up with. I don't know if it's off the wall or not, but I have determined, and I told my husband this, so this is not a surprise, that he is my third chance. He's my third chance, because my first love and my second love are my daughters.
Mhm.
He's my third love. He's my third chance.
Excellent.
And so on a personal aspect, that's where that hit. Because when I told him what the name of your podcast was, he thought, okay, you were married once. Now you're married to me. What's that mean for me? What's going to happen next? And I
Again,
was like,
everybody sees what they want to see, right?
he was like, oh no. And
Oh,
it was so funny because when that hit me, that moment hit me, I'm like, wait, this makes so much more sense to me. This makes so much more sense. So on the personal relationship side, that's what I see about that. This third chance, I look at my career in three ways, literally in three ways.
yes.
So the beginning foundling stage where I'm fumbling, I can't find myself. I'm doing all of these different 7 jobs in 7 years, literally.
Yeah.
Then I become a stay-at-home mom. And that was a wonderful period of time. And then I find this other amazing dream job where they're paying me to work with books and libraries and publishing houses on a daily basis, working with Penguin Random House. I actually have a picture on my website of a fangirl moment in New York City, the very first time, the only time I've ever been to New York City. And my daughters and I are walking along. It was Christmas time, and and I look up and it says Penguin Random House. And I was like, excuse me? I looked at, I'm like, excuse me? And as I'm walking in, I'm standing there, I'm like, oh my gosh, John Grisham has probably walked right here. He has probably
Yeah.
stepped in these doors.
Yeah.
And I told the person who was behind the reception desk, could you move for just a second so I can get a picture with Penguin Random House behind me? And he looked at me like I was crazy, but he moved. So that was nice. So I have that picture on my website because it was such a moment for me to stand in the place where I worked with Penguin Classics and their online book club for 15 years,
Yeah.
with Penguin Random House's First Look book club for 7 years. And it's like, this is the place. So it was a total weird moment for me.
That's
And I'm
beautiful.
totally going off the rails here. But anyway, so the second chance with it was that period of time where I was in a stable career. It was a gravy job, honestly, because you're paying me to read books. And in the executive administrative role, it's like, I'm doing really well. I'm making the most money I've ever made. I actually went to college during the span of time after my divorce. And when I got remarried, I graduated from college and with a first degree. And so that was my second chance. Okay, this is cool. This is really cool. And what's happened with my mom has given me a third chance at providing a service that provides me an income, but allows me to serve others.
And still use all your passions and loves
Exactly.
and talents and
Exactly.
package it together.
It
That's
is. It's
brilliant.
all wrapped up into coffee and words and sometimes cookies, so much more frequently than there need to be cookies. But it's just that the culmination of I can put what I love to use for people. And it doesn't matter to me if it's a LinkedIn post for a financial client, or it's a Facebook post for a construction client, or it's a press release for a mosaic tile company, which they're amazing. It doesn't matter to me what it is. My job is to be of service to my clients so that they can present their best possible outcomes for their clients. Because I'm behind the scenes, which I love to be. I'm a behind the scenes girl. I want to be behind the scenes. I want to be fixing things on the background that nobody thinks about, so that when they see it, it's just like, oh, this is just wonderful. We don't have any idea everything that went in behind all of this, but this looks wonderful.
That's right. Yeah.
That's the goal.
What I was trying to actually get across.
That's the goal.
When somebody,
you don't know I exist with these other companies.
Yeah, I have been at that space at the beginning of my entrepreneurial career years back. And I remember when I was actually looking for copywriter for my website, and I was like, oh my God, I can't pay this kind of money. That's crazy. And so I learned myself, of course, not ideally, but I learned how to do it myself. And I kept,
you keep at it.
Because I couldn't afford to pay several $1,000s to somebody to do it for me. And but then you learn it's not the some people look at it like, oh, I'm paying you for this many words. It's the work and the experience that is behind that allows them to define that message so powerfully that
Right.
you would never even come across. It will never even come across your mind, because we are inverted in our world, and somebody else sees it from the world, from the eyes of your clients. And that's
Yeah.
the big difference. And
Yeah.
that takes talent, and that takes expertise, and that takes a lot of hours of research. And that's what you're paying for when
Yeah,
you
exactly.
get somebody like
Exactly.
that.
You're not paying for the fact that I've actually only been doing this for 2
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
I've only been in business for 2 years.
Yeah.
You've got
And
a
it's
9-year-old
yeah.
all the way up. You got 40 years, literally 40 years of my work as an editor, as a
Yeah,
writer.
to figure out things that you can have it for, instead of
Yeah.
you learning it for 20 years, you can have it for 20 minutes. Yeah,
Right.
that's
And
really
that's why I lean on my daughter as much as I do, because she creates those programs that she's gone through the muck. She's gone through the
Yeah.
trenches on everything and learned done the mistakes, learned, oh, don't do it this way again. So she teaches and empowers other people, mainly women, but teaches other people how to, this is what I did wrong, so you can now do it right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's how I
So
learned the best.
you literally learning, so you don't have to repeat those costly mistakes
Right.
again. And I think that's, it's a little off topic, but when I lost my husband, of course, suddenly you're facing different things in the house that I have never had to attend to.
All
Like,
right.
fixing stuff. And like,
Yeah.
I was very handy because my father was super handy.
Mm-hmm.
So I lived in a garage with him, and I'm able to do a lot of things, but things that was always his domain that I didn't even worry about suddenly became, I need to hire someone, or I can fix it myself. But so let
Right.
me look at it. And let me tell you, when somebody can record a wonderful video on YouTube and walk you step by step
I know.
what you need to have done, and you are able to fix it yourself, you
Yes,
never thought you would be, it's super powerful.
it
And
is.
it just gave me kind of feel of accomplishment, even when it looked like
Absolutely.
ridiculous thing. But going back to the point that we were making before, it is not so easy to learn this art so quickly. It takes
That's true.
years to really get there, and to have that sense, and to
Yeah.
have that view,
Yeah.
what not only what you want to say, but who you are speaking to and what they respond to. It is
Right.
art, and I think it's I have learned my lessons over the years that there's one very powerfully written email can means millions
Yeah.
of sales, and there's no amount of money that is, it's the value you see is different than the value you're receiving. And I think
Absolutely.
that's always true in business. It's the price is, if people ask me upfront what the price is, I tell them, well, if it was $5, it could be too much, because you don't even know what you're getting. You
Right.
don't even know what the value of the thing you want to
Yeah.
look at
What's
is.
behind it?
Yeah. And it used to be I used to sell wine years back in Connecticut, and I would never tell them price ahead of time, for simple reason, because I have seen people disregard wonderful, powerful, valuable wines because they thought it was too cheap, so it's gonna be garbage.
Right.
So you immediately get influence your mind with your perception of value.
Yep.
And I have had tastings when I would pull up a bottle of wine that wasn't crazy expensive, but it was incredibly good for its value. And I would make a point that, I would have somebody taste it after all the big shots and all the big expensive wines. So their mind was already there, like,
Yeah.
to expect really high price. And then tasted this one that was out of this world, but it was priced very, very reasonably. And and if they loved it, I would say, well, what would you pay for it? And they told me, oh, that's easily $100, because we just tasted Camas and plum jacks and so, like big shots. And I'm like, so you may really like it on your wine list because it's $18.99. What? And it's just, this is the perception we have. So I like to ask everybody, learn about what you want to learn first, and then evaluate it if it has a value for you.
Absolutely.
Don't evaluate things with, and that goes to anything in life. Don't evaluate things based on price.
Right.
When you don't know what the value is, how can you make a decision if it's too expensive or too cheap?
That's it.
Yeah.
I've had some really expensive chocolate chip cookies. No, thank you. I'd rather have the ones from Dublin, Ireland at the Dublin Cookie Factory that were absolutely amazing and were less than £2 each.
Yeah.
Or not pounds, but euros.
Yeah. But that's the whole thing. We all value different things. We all have different priorities. And in the case of what you do for people, I learned my lesson, how valuable that work is. And if you want a discount price somewhere, you will get what you pay for, which is unfortunately the truth. And I have seen those as well.
Yeah. And it did, I want to take up too much of this, but it did take my daughter speaking as a parent to me when it came to pricing, when it came to owning my value, because, you know, recent college grad, my degree is not even in writing. It's not in journalism. It's in business. It's not in anything that I'm currently doing other than running a business. But she's like, you have the gift and you have the years of your experience behind you. You cannot discount what that is worth.
Yeah.
So it's still sometimes for me a little bit of a struggle. I actually have one client right now that I've worked with long term, and I make less than half of my rate with her because I just believe in her product so much. It's a conversational class for people with aphasia who've suffered brain injuries and from Parkinson's and stroke. And so because I've dealt with my mom's communication inabilities for the past few years, her project just struck my heart.
Yeah.
And she's one of my favorite people to work with.
To choose.
Absolutely. So I'm going to charge over here for the other stuff.
Exactly.
So I can do this one.
But I think the biggest lesson I learned over the years when I started my coaching business and everything, stop looking at yourself as a freelancer that is charging per
You're a
hour.
business owner.
You are not charging per hour. You are charging for the results the client is getting. And no matter how much time it takes on your part and how much experience you need to pull it together, that's what the client pays for. Not for how many hours you spend on it. And that's just, it's absolutely, that's why we have people driving Hondas and we have people driving BMWs.
Yeah.
It's a status, it's the performance, it's different people look at different things. Did both cars drive the same way? Did they give you from point A to point B? Absolutely.
Right.
But one can cost $25,000 and the other $150,000. So what's the difference?
Exactly. No, thank you. And one's more expensive to repair. No, thanks.
Yeah, I just gave it as an example to how we view things differently.
Yeah.
And what is priority in your life? I have never had thirst for expensive things. I have never had brand purses or shoes or whatever is important to other people. And I don't put them down. If it's important for you, you made the money, you spend them the way you want.
Absolutely.
But for me, it was always more important what I put into my body than what I put on
what was on top. Yep.
You know, and it's because the health for me is the biggest wealth. And unfortunately, some people only learn about that when they lose it.
Yes. And especially even with mental health. So I would reiterate, if you have unresolved grief in your life, you need to deal with it because you don't know what it's going to lead to down the line. You don't.
Push deep down and trying to forget never works well. That's
at all. You need to deal with it, get to the surface and talk to it.
Remember that too for yourself, because you have gone through a lot of service not thinking about yourself.
Yeah, I know, a lot, a lot. And I understand that now. Yeah. So it's a lot different, which is probably why I write when I write, because it gets all of that out of me.
Yeah. Hey, that's a good therapy. Susan, this was such a joy
It's
to
so
talk to you. Oh
fun.
my God, we spent a lot of time. Wow.
Yeah, we do that.
But this was great masterclass for everybody to learn a thing about copywriting and about what comes into it and how differently it may work when your message is crafted expertly well.
Definitely.
So if Susan work resonated with you, and I'm so grateful that you actually dropped some wisdoms for my podcast so people can actually learn for free certain tricks. But if you really, if her message resonated with you and you would like to reach out and feel what it would feel like to work with Susan, please reach out. I'll be posting all her connections and show notes of this episode. And I certainly hope that we empowered somebody's life and brightened somebody's day. And if you like this episode, please share it with others that may use it and support.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Susan. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, you too.